Hello and welcome to the Ocean Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Silverwood. Our guest on the podcast today is Andre Borell, who is the producer and director of the upcoming documentary about sharks in Australia called Envoy, Shark Cull. But this is just one of Andre's latest projects. He's a very experienced entrepreneur and business leader. He's co-founder of the Hype Project and he's got a lot of success to his name. But in this conversation, we did want to dive into what is this Envoy project and why is he so passionate about protecting sharks. So realistically, this whole campaign is looking at the interaction between sharks and ocean users in Australia and really shining a light on how archaic the current technologies and strategies being adopted are. We're talking about the same strategies and the same technologies that have been around for 60 years. And when you start to look at the science, you start to realise they are thoroughly inadequate and causing a huge amount of harm to innocent marine life. So OIO's perspective on this is you have to follow the science and you have to be future thinking. So one of the things that we love about Andre's approach is that he's looking at this modernisation of archaic technology. You might have seen recently he presented a modernisation plan to the Queensland government showing that with contemporary approaches we can actually look to have much less interaction and much less damage to marine life. So we're talking about things like drones, for example, that can adopt AI to identify sharks and warn those beach users. The shark safe barrier, which is basically a biomimicry approach to mimic a kelp forest that can be installed around designated areas to prevent those interactions between sharks and humans. Eco shark barrier, which you would have seen already being utilised in parts of Western Australia, and all sorts of programs around education, shark tourism to try and increase ocean literacy to help people once again follow the data and not get embroiled in the highly charged emotion often perpetrated by media and people with vested interests, politicians, to try and create this rift in a practical, pragmatic conversation. Like I said, we always believe in trying to protect human life, but we must start to develop a mature conversation around the fact that we desperately need to preserve marine life, particularly threatened shark species, and that there is a future thinking way around this. Innovation is key here. Thanks for your time, Andre. I will add that the documentary Envoy Shark Cull is not yet out. It's coming soon. It's narrated by Eric Bana. It's got an incredible cast, the biggest names in shark conservation, world champion surfers, Carroll, Layne, Beachley. It's going to be an incredible documentary, not to mention the freedom of information, access to images and video that these guys have got their hands on for the doco. It's going to send shockwaves. We're really happy to support it, and we wish you the best of luck, Andre. Thanks for your time, and thanks to everyone for tuning in to the Ocean Impact Podcast. Very excited to have on the Ocean Impact Podcast today Andre Borell, who's creative director of the Hype Project, but also the director and producer of Envoy Shark Cull, a documentary that is very soon going to be seen around the world. How are you, mate?
I'm excellent. Thank you for having me, Tim. I'm pumped to be here and talk about shark culling and talk about our project and what we've found.
Yeah, give us a bit of a spiel there. Obviously, we're going to have a nice, long, meandering conversation, but we did open on these 2 points. We talked about the Hype Project, and we talked about this documentary Envoy Shark Cull. So, how about you give us a bit of a spiel about what you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So, traditionally in my working life, I've been a business guy. I've always seen a niche a niche or an opportunity in a market where something could be done better or changed, and you could kind of shake things up. And I've had businesses along the years that have done that and been successful. 2.5 years ago, I wanted to start a video production company, not for the purposes that I guess other people go into the creative industry. So a lot of people want to do that as they're living and a way to, I guess, make money. I saw a video production company as what I wanted to do as my next venture because of the platform it gives you to go and tell stories that matter and expose things that need to be exposed. And yeah, basically started a video production company with a mate of mine, the Hype Project, with my mate Reese. And it does a lot of normal work as well, a lot of corporate videos, a lot of real estate videos, a lot of that sort of stuff. But really the reason I went into it was to create a platform and give me the resources to do passion projects like this. So Envoy is that. It's our first feature-length project, self-funded passion project. And it is basically a fact science research-based look into the Queensland and New South Wales shark control program in Queensland and bather protection program or shark meshing program, depending what terminology they use in New South Wales. So a passion project that we've all sunk a lot of blood, sweat, tears, time, money into to show what is really going on, which when you see it is quite mind-blowing.
Yes, and from what you pick up in the trailer and other bits of footage that you've released on your social channels and other platforms, it really does look like something which is going to rattle some cages and shake the tree and really send a bit of a shockwave through the Australian population and the population around the world, particularly those who have an affinity and understanding, appreciation of the vital role of sharks in the ocean. Why sharks, mate? What you just said you wanted to start a bit of a passion project and video production. Why sharks?
That's a really, really good question. I get this a bit lately, and I've been thinking back and kind of trying to delve back into my brain and figure out why. And I don't have a great answer. I guess I've just got these memories scattered throughout my childhood and then adolescence and early adulthood that I think must form this kind of affinity I have for them and for the ocean. So I think it starts back visiting an aquarium as a kid, I don't know, 5-10 years old, and you go through those perspex tunnels and you see a shark cruising above you. That was really cool. I liked, Finding Nemo when it came out. Always spent a lot of time at the beach, not necessarily diving or snorkeling or anything, but always a lot of time near the water as a kid growing up. After that, I think really the big game changer for me is getting my dive license, doing my open water with Paddy first, and then obviously more from there, and really getting to connect with not just sharks but other animals face to face and eye to eye, and actually spending time in their environment. That's probably the biggest game changer. There's obviously things that led to that, but that to me opened my eyes to be like, this is nothing like what everyone makes out, and this is a whole different planet down here. Like, it's just this amazing place. And then you feel more connected to it. And when you see bad things happening to it, it's really hard to accept. And it's really, well, at least for me, it's quite upsetting. And then probably the other one is shark water. Seeing shark water for the first time, I was just mind blown. Obviously that's not on the exact same topic. That one's largely about commercial fishing of sharks and finning, and all the other issues surrounding that. But, whereas we've decided to focus on culling, but still just the way that film presented the issue was, it's still one of my favorite documentaries of all time. I think somehow all that goes into the pot and get mixed around and bubbles away in my brain. And at some point I'd had enough. And there was kind of this tipping point, or this breaking point, if you like, where I knew what was happening here in our waters with our culling programs. And I shared a lot of stuff on social media and I donated. And at some point, I guess, like I say, I guess I snapped and went, no, I got to do more. I want to do more. And That was right around the time that started the Hype Project. So exposing the atrocities that are going on via the power of film is how I decided to make that impact and do something.
How would you summarise? It's a big question, but how would you summarise, attitudes to sharks globally? This historical context that brings us up to 2020, where this stuff is still going on and people aren't in the streets rallying to prevent it. How would you summarise this history of attitudes towards sharks from your perspective?
I think the history has a lot to do with not understanding them, and science still evolving so much in this space. And obviously media and film play a part in that as well. But you fear things you don't understand. If the only time you see a shark ever is on the news, because they say it, when I say they, I mean the media, because they say it mauled someone or ate someone, or the only time you see it is in a film and it's obviously hammed up, got a bit of Hollywood tax on it, and they're making it seem a lot more malicious and vicious and all those things. If that's your only exposure to sharks, of course you're going to have a fear, and of course you're not really going to care if they die. And it's just a lack of understanding or lack of first-hand experience. And I guess those two things go hand in hand. But science has a big role to play in terms of explaining that these animals aren't mindless killers, and they're very methodical about what they do, and actually very cautious animals. And getting under the surface and getting eyeball to eyeball with these guys and seeing how they actually act when it's not on a Hollywood set or it's not being sensationalized for a headline. That's so important. But yeah, I think going back to your original question, that what brings us here is just not understanding them at all. We see a fin poking out of the water, we see gnashing teeth, we get told things that aren't necessarily true, and I think that's what leads us to where we are today. And that plays into the public psyche and the little bit of remaining support there is for culling programs. It's small. The vast majority of the public are against them based on recent polls. But the little bit of remaining, I guess, support for them it has to be based on that misunderstanding. Because once you understand, you don't fear them anymore.
Tell us then about Envoy Shark Cull, the documentary that you've sunk all this blood, sweat, tears, money into, and what it helps to achieve.
My firm belief with a lot of issues, I guess, in society, or a lot of injustices that are going on, my firm belief is that the vast majority of people, once they know something bad is going on, they won't stand for it, and they don't like it, and they'll be just as disgusted about it as I was about this program when I learned what it really was. So the disconnect really is, it's not that people don't care or that they just have a disregard for animals. In most cases, of course, there's a small percentage that just want to see stuff die. But to me, the disconnect is just knowing that it's going on. And that's what this film is here to achieve. And it's why we've gone about it in the way that we've gone about it. So, for us, having a big name narrator was important because that will draw in Eric Bana, for those that don't know, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I'm so pumped to finally be able to talk about that. So for us, having, he suited the tone of the film and the tone of the topic perfectly well. But for me, having a household name like that, the real reason was that when someone's flicking through whatever streaming platform they might be on and this film will end up on, it's about drawing in the audience that wouldn't normally be drawn in, because your average mum and dad who drive down to the beach and take their kids for a swim, they think these programs are keeping them safe, and they don't realise it's a culling program. They genuinely believe it's keeping them safe via keeping, I guess, sharks away from them through barriers or whatever it is. So dragging in the audience that is the average Joe that does not comprehend what these programs are was really, really important to us. And really explaining to them what the programs actually are, because like I said, I guess how I started the answer, that's where the disconnect happens. Not understanding what's going on is the disconnect to doing something about this. Because in my mind, again, unless you're a hunter or something and you enjoy killing animals, other than that, no I guess, normal person can see what this program is and have it revealed to them in the way that we're going to reveal it to them in our documentary and feel it's right. There's just no way. So the film's really about bridging that gap between, I guess, the lack of knowledge on this topic in the general population, closing that gap. And then from there, I think people doing the right thing and people's heart being in the right place will take over.
I'm excited. So give us a little bit of a glimpse, without a full spoiler alert, what that narrative arc looks like, and maybe use that as a way of then talking about what you hope the film will achieve in the longer term.
Sure, absolutely. So we start by introducing you to our fantastic cast. So we've got really a pretty star-studded cast from, some of the leading conservationists in the world in this space, scientists, surfers, obviously.
Can you run us through some of those cast members?
Yeah, we can do that. Absolutely. So we've got Madison Stewart, who you've had on recently as well. I just listened to the episode the other day. I didn't realise that this doco was going to be a topic of conversation, but that was a cool little surprise. And her work that she usually does over in Indo is really, really cool stuff. So Madison Stewart, we've got Ocean Ramsey and Juan Oliphant as well. Holly Richmond, who made a short film on this topic as well. She's a marine biologist based on the Gold Coast. She's in it as well. We've got a couple of surfers who, right now when we're recording, haven't been announced yet, but they will be by the time this is out. So Layne Beachley and Tom Carroll as well went down to northern beaches of Sydney to have a chat with them. I think surfers hold a very important part in this debate because they're one of the higher risk categories. We've also got Dr. Leonardo Guida from Australian Marine Conservation Society, Lawrence Quebec from Humane Society. We've got Jono Clark from Sea Shepherd. Like all-star cast. Anyone that's working in or around this space, we've got them involved. So it's been really cool to see that. Actually, that just as a little tangent, to see the space kind of become galvanized around this project, which is not something I expected it would do, but generally everyone's done their own thing, whereas this seems to have, I guess, unified us a little bit, which is really, really cool. So we introduce you to all of that amazing cast. If there is anyone I've left off, I apologize. But yeah, introduce you to that amazing cast, introduce you to sharks in terms of dispelling some of those Hollywood myths. And then we start to dive into the topic. So we reveal what this program actually is. And we can go into it a little bit deeper here, but look, the short version is it's a culling program. The shark nets are not a barrier that keeps sharks away from people. They don't go to the bottom. They don't stretch the whole length of the beach. They're a fishing net. They're essentially a fishing net, a shark net or a shark meshing program, as they're called in New South Wales. It's just a fancy word for a gill net, as you would use when you're performing commercial fishing. So we expose what this program actually is, and that includes drum lines as well, which are just a big industrial fishing hook that is baited to attract sharks. Expose what the program actually is. And then we start to go into legalities, which is something that has never really been looked into that I'm aware of as deeply as what this film has done. So there was a Senate inquiry at a federal level, Australian Federal Senate inquiry in 2017 looking into this topic. There was a court case recently where Humane Society International took Queensland Fisheries to court, specifically about running the program in the Great Barrier Reef. We then go look into the Environmental Protection Act and how that applies here, because the target list of this cull includes protected species, so on and so forth. We really take quite a deep dive into the legalities of it. And then we look into the facts about whether it actually keeps people safe. We look into the facts around bycatch, all the stuff they don't want to catch, but they catch more of it than what they're actually trying to catch, which is sharks. And then, yeah, basically a call to action at the end. We draw it all together by saying, this is not right. Let's do something about this. Time we do something about this.
So therefore, with that call to action and what you hope this film will instigate, like what does success look like for you in the future?
I always approach things with a pretty big goal. To be honest, I'm always one of those people that, aim for the stars, and if you fall short, you land on the moon kind of thing. So for me, I'll probably see it as failure if these programs aren't ended in their current form, in their lethal form. That's really what has to happen. It's the logical thing that needs to happen, both from a protecting humans point of view, both from an animal welfare point of view. These programs need to end in their current form, period. There was global outrage about the WA cull. And if anything, that was actually more humane than these programs. These are absurd. When you see the facts behind these and the devastation they cause, it's insane that they still happen now. So yeah, I want to see the programs end, and I don't think the government's ever going to rip these kind of measures out and do nothing and just say, all right, you're all on your own now, enter the water at your own risk. Although that is how the rest of the world, pretty much, other than South Africa and Reunion Island, that is how they treat the issue of sharks. I don't think we're going to do that. It's too ingrained that the government has a role in protecting people, which is why, again, one of the things I left out before of our narrative, actually, which is why we talk about solutions as well. And we do kind of hopscotch around the world and look at who's developing what, and what ways there are to actually protect people, because I can't emphasize enough that these programs are not, despite the I guess the rhetoric that the government like to trot out, and B, don't go killing tens or hundreds of thousands of sharks to achieve it.
Amazing. So big goals, love them. Safe to say others have tried, and I guess using the word failed is acceptable, because, you know, people have had this vision before. What's going to make it different this time?
Yeah, isn't that the $1 million question? I feel like what I look at WA as a good case study, right? And it's a slightly different scenario because it was a brand new program. They had a 3-month trial. There was global outrage and it ended. They pulled the pin on it. So I step back and look at that and go, okay, there was a flashpoint because it was new. We don't have that flashpoint here because in New South Wales, the program's been running since 1937 and Queensland's been running since 1962. So what's the flashpoint going to be? There needs to be something that gets people overseas, people in Australia, really, I mean, to be frank, like pissed off and go, this isn't okay. And use their voice to express that to the elected people that are running these programs and are supposed to serve us. So, yeah, I guess I thought, what can that flashpoint be? Feature-length film that gets picked up and gets a big overseas viewing. I figured that's our best shot. You know, short of someone else said this to me the other day, and it's a little bit grim, but short of like Migaloo getting caught in a shark net or something like a really iconic whale like that, or something that people really care about, short of that happening, I don't see what else can be the flashpoint. So yeah, a lot of people who've been working in the space a lot longer than me, probably a lot more competent than me, haven't achieved this. But you know, this is just our, in my opinion, our best shot. Use the power of film to generate international and local outrage and get something done about it, because clearly, you know, not Migaloo but other whales getting entangled in a shark net and drowning and dying doesn't do it. Baby dolphins getting a gut hook from a drum line and having to be taken to SeaWorld and live out the rest of their life in captivity because shark control equipment made them unable to be released to the wild doesn't do it. Dolphins getting wrapped in shark nets and drowning doesn't do it. Like, other than this for me is like there's so many things that should have done it before. A contractor getting caught finning, a contractor who's employed by the government to run the Queensland Shark Control Program in one particular region, not the whole state, getting caught and prosecuted in 2018 for finning. Like, that doesn't do it. I don't know what will, other than this, I guess. I don't know if it's the right term, but I guess this Hail Mary of let's make a feature length about this, expose this to the world, and if that doesn't do it, I don't know what will.
I think we're in that age now where the streaming service approach it's a bit of a game changer, right? Sure, it's been around for a few years now, and there's a number of environmental documentaries that have radically increased the eyeballs on them as a result of these streaming services. But on that point, so that's available to you, and it sounds like you've used that as a premier strategy. What about the shock and awe, right? I get the sense that you are really going to take people into quite despairing situations because that's what's needed. How are you balancing, and what sort of intel and advice are you getting on how to massage the shock and the despair with the critical importance of showing what you want to show?
Yeah, it's to me, it was one of the real challenges in this, in striking that balance. Like you don't want to sanitize it completely and not show it. You cannot get the message across of how horrific these programs are without showing the really, really, really ugly truth. You can't do it. Nor do people want to sit and watch and be just emotionally broken for 90 minutes either. So for us, it was a bit of a balance. I feel like we've struck that balance pretty well now, where we expose some pretty horrific stuff in short sections of the film, but we don't sit there and just absolutely rip your heart out and stomp on it for the entire length of the film either, because we go look at solutions, because we go look at the legalities of it. You know, in those contexts, we're telling the narrative in a very different way. But yeah, we do have, in particular, two sections of the film that just show the program for just exactly what it is. You know, we're not we don't need to, I guess, ham it up or you know, do what Hollywood do in terms of making it, you know, more over the top than what it actually is. We just lay it out, use real clips, real audio, a little bit of music behind it, and just let the program speak for itself. We really don't even need to say anything. And yeah, the balance is hard because you need to see it, but you can't watch it for 90 minutes or 2 hours straight either.
I wanted to sort of reflect back on that success of, I guess, the WA example and what you've seen, I suppose, in recent years that gives you the confidence that attitudes have pivoted enough that this film and the resulting call to action and the impact campaign around it is going to lead to the success of it. Like, what are you picking up in community attitudes in Australia and around the world that is going to be that defining difference?
Community attitudes on this, specifically in Queensland and New South Wales, where these programs are run, are already in our favour. So any poll that's taken over the last few years sits around the 70 to 80% mark of people against these programs. So we already have community support. What has become clear, though, is that you don't just need a majority, or you don't just need, I guess, that level of community support to end a program like this, which can be a politically risky move to end it. To end a program like this, you need an overwhelming majority. Like, we clearly need like numbers of 90, 95, 98% of people against this locally, and then international outrage as well. Like, we clearly need it needs to be so overwhelming to end this. And again, that brings me back to the reason behind doing this project, is that I think this was the only way I could think of to achieve that. Like, this stuff's been out there on social media for a while, and that's obviously contributed to those numbers getting to where they are today. Just 70, 80% of people, 70, 80% of the community being against this. But governments still aren't budging. There's still zero, I guess, movement in ending the culling practices in these programs. So yeah, I think exposing it for what it is can help us get to that critical mass where governments are going to have to listen. What that number is, I don't know. I would have thought 70% of your constituents telling you to get this rubbish out of the water would have been enough, but it's not, clearly. So I don't know. Is it 80? Is it 90? Is it 95? Is it international outrage? Is it people saying they're not going to come visit us until you sort this out? Is it overseas celebrities speaking out against it, which we obviously saw in WA with Richard Branson and Ricky Gervais? I don't know what the answer is, because I thought we'd passed that point a long time ago, where these things should come out of the water. So, yeah.
Can I throw in media, perhaps? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, media's media perceptions up to this are changing too. I feel like some extremely right-wing publications, maybe not, but a lot of the media coverage we've gotten since we launched our trailer and I guess started making noise about this doco has actually been quite balanced. And they've given us more than a fair run, and they've actually taken the government to task on it a little bit. Whereas I feel maybe 5 years ago that wouldn't have been the case. I think maybe we would have been attacked for making this film, for being, greenies or hippies or whatever, and putting sharks before people, like all that rubbish that's just simply not true. I think the media is going away from that. The government still do that. We've been called a so-called documentary, and we've been accused of putting sharks before people when that's not the case. These programs don't work. We actually want technologies that will actually protect people, with the benefit of not killing sharks either. So the government, I think, are the last to come along. I think the community got there first. The media's following, again, with the exclusion of maybe some publications, but the vast majority, I think they approach this very balanced. And now we just need the people making the decisions to catch up to the rest of us.
Sorry to interrupt your beautiful podcast experience, but I just wanted to jump in and remind you that in order to help us grow the crowd of ocean impact supporters out there, we really do need to see this podcast reach more ear canals. So would you kindly consider subscribing? Would you kindly consider writing a review? And if you love an episode, please share it around. We're blown away by the support, but with more listeners, we can make an even greater impact. Well, if that's true, I must admit that's a really big, plus in your corner, mate, because I think that traditionally, and you referenced 5 years ago, the fear of the media potentially changing tack and pursuing a narrative and a rhetoric that was going to be political suicide was probably a huge reason, right? So if we can sort of have some surety that the media rhetoric is going to be on your side, then I think that the political barriers are going to start maybe coming down.
I think it's already balanced, leaning towards being on our side. And our PR strategy around this has been do not buy into the nonsense government rhetoric, which is there's only been one fatality at a protected beach. They've only got two moves. There's only been one fatality at a protected beach, and we've got to put people before sharks. And our strategy has been never, ever, ever to buy into that. And always correct the record on both of those. And media are starting to catch on to that. And they're starting to realise that what Minister Furner says or Anastasia Palaszczuk, when they throw out those two very predictable lines, they're starting to realise that they're BS. It's not a decision between sharks and people. You can have both. And if you use 2020 technology instead of 1930s technology, you would have both. And the one fatality at a protected beach is also hugely misleading, and also a bit of an attention grab for their programs when it's not actually down to their programs. So there's been a lot of bites at protected beaches, a lot. They do these devices, shark nets, drumlines, do not keep sharks away from people. People get bitten at meshed beaches, at shark netted beaches, and at drumline beaches. It happens a lot. The reason they don't die is quick medical intervention. So to claim there's only been one fatality at a protected beach because of your programs, A, discounts the 50-something bites there have been, which I feel is misleading. And B, it kind of steals credit from surf lifesavers and emergency services and first responders, because that's who's actually saving lives. These bites are happening at these beaches where you run your silly program that doesn't work. What's stopping it is applying a tourniquet quickly, attending to the victim quickly, getting someone there with blood, be it in a chopper or in an ambulance quickly. That's what's actually saving lives. So for government to claim credit for that, I guess as a way of justifying their program, that one really grinds my gears, because it's both deceptive and just a bit pathetic, really, to be claiming credit for something that's not actually you at all.
Love it. So we're telling the story. We want to get the control measures out, or we want to at least evolve them. So let's talk a little bit about solutions and innovations, like what's happening around the world. What are you advocating as a proactive measure to meet the government somewhere in the middle?
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple of barrier solutions that are really, really good. By barrier, I mean sharks can't actually swim through it. They cannot get into an enclosed area that is there for swimmers or surfers. Again, just reiterating, that's not what shark nets are. Shark nets, they can swim around them, under them, in New South Wales, over them. It's not what shark nets are, but there are actual barrier solutions that do work, and you can create an enclosure. That is the best way to ensure no shark bites and therefore no shark bite fatalities. A shark can't bite you if it's not near you. So those barrier solutions are really encouraging. They do have more of an upfront cost than these nets, which are a disposable item, but lifetime cost, they're the cheaper option. They're absolutely the cheaper option. There's one that is suitable for surf breaks that can move with the swell more. It kind of mimics kelp. In terms of the way it's constructed, and then there's one for more calm beaches, which is more of a grid, I guess, a grid kind of fence pattern. Looks like what people think a shark net would look like, and kind of acts like what people think a shark net is. So barrier solutions are really encouraging. Drone surveillance is a complete game changer. Like so effective in that top down, you can see a shark. If you're trained properly, you can tell the species, and you can go, it's a grey nurse, don't worry about it. Or you can go, it's a great white, let's ring the bell or sound the siren and get people out of the water. That technology is going to evolve too. It can be used and should be used and is being used in certain places right now. There's no reason for every patrol beach not to have a drone right now. But that will evolve. They'll evolve greater ranges. They'll have, I guess, ways of running autonomously. AI in them that can spot the species of shark and make its own decisions rather than a human having to do it. So that's really exciting. But I kind of don't like talking about where it can go in the future because it makes it sound like we shouldn't be using it now. But that's not the case. It is highly effective and far more effective than nets and drumlines right now. But where it's going in the next 5 to 10 years is even better. Personal deterrents are good. We talked to Lindsay from Ocean Guardian about their shark shield technology in the film. That's been really well tested. When no other method can protect you, if you're surfing at a remote break or diving and you're concerned about sharks, personal electrical deterrents are really good. We touch on smart drumlines as well. They're not our favorite solution because while they're not lethal to sharks, which is a plus, they don't keep sharks away from people either. So at the end of the day, a smart drumline is still a piece of bait in the water on a hook near humans, near a swimming beach, which is not the best idea. And we've got science and data to back that. So smart drumlines, I think, are a step in the right direction, but they're not the real solution here. Keeping sharks away from people or monitoring for sharks and being able to clear people, it's really the way to go.
Are they all your favourite, or do you have a tendency to be embracing of one particular technology or solution?
The answer is tricky. I think once you say you have one favourite, it can kind of open you up to criticism, I feel, because no one of them works in every scenario. So if you've got horrendous water quality, maybe drones won't work. So generally I'll lean towards drones, but not everywhere, because drones won't work everywhere. Barriers won't work everywhere. But the key, though, is something works anywhere. Any location you pick and point to on a map, something will work.
Yeah, I'm the same. I guess I was leaning you towards sort of drones just because I think there's something beautiful happening around drones in terms of increasing ocean literacy and ocean understanding as well, which I think, one of our key pillars with Ocean Impact Organisation is inspiration. Like if we can get people far more familiar with the ocean, then it's going to change attitudes and behaviour.
Yeah, exactly. It's like my example at the start that for me the game changer was getting under the surface and scuba diving. Like that all that is in essence is more familiarity. It's so important. And, the power of imagery, the power of film, the power of actually getting out there, encouraging people to go diving themselves, introducing to sharks with, ecotourism and shark experiences, all of that builds that familiarity and makes people care, I think. So, yeah, it's a huge, huge part in engaging people.
So I've had some experience with environmental media projects, documentaries like Blue the Film, and docos like the War on Waste series. And the big buzz terminology in doco land now is all about, impact docos and what's your impact campaign. Of course, you need as many people as possible to see the film, and that will fill those people with hopefully the inspiration to want to do something about it. But then it's about, what is the impact campaign? You mentioned your PR strategy before. What is your impact campaign? Is it still got a little bit of work to go? Who are you collaborating with?
Yeah, we're gonna have actions resulting at the end of this film to send that message we want to send even clearer. So again, in a lot of ways, we've used the WA success as our template. So people on the beach being vocal about their outrage, people on surfboards having a paddle out and sending their message. I think that's two huge things that got the message across in that scenario, and we're going to be doing exactly the same thing. So we'll be facilitating those, and we'll be working with all the organisations that feature in the film. So I mentioned before, Jono from Sea Shepherd, Leo from AMCS, Lawrence from HSI, all those organisations. We're all going to pull together and I guess pull in the same direction for those actions at the end of the film. You're exactly right. The impact is the key. Like, to me, making a nice film that was interesting and got views and achieving nothing is a resounding failure. Like, cannot even put into words how disappointed with that I would be. It is about impact. Like, I generally don't like buzzwords, and that's not the terminology we've been using internally. But yeah, we want to make change. Absolutely, that's all that matters at the end of this. And for me, I guess the way I came to that realization, and I won't name names on this, but I watched a really beautiful film about it was an environmental, I guess, impact doco, and at the end, it was really unclear what to do. Like, it highlighted some issues. It highlighted where, not what we need to do, but where we need to improve and how we could fix this issue. But at the end, it just kind of rolled credits and nothing. And it was a beautiful film. And that was the point to me. This is a couple of years ago now. I think just around when we were coming up with the concept for this film. And that for me was like we're going to be the opposite of that. We're going to have such a crystal clear call to action at the end. And our job's not done at the end of the editing studio and you hand it over to whoever's going to be screening this thing. That's not where our job ends. If anything, that's where our real job starts. So A, clear call to action at the end of the film, very clear. And then B, we don't let the foot off the gas. If anything, we press it down harder and make sure those actions happen and facilitate them ourselves if we have to, and really keep playing a really active role in this topic after the film's out. And I think that's a little bit unusual because, usually either you're trying to create actions through activism or conservation, or you're a filmmaker, and I think blurring the two is not common. And it's just, I guess, a little bit of, I don't know, ignorance is bliss, maybe, that we didn't know we're not really supposed to do that, or a bit of naivety, maybe. But to us from day one, it was the obvious way to go about this, and that is what we'll be doing.
Yeah, awesome. And you obviously mentioned some really impressive environmental organisations, but I'd imagine that there's many others out there that will join in once the momentum is building around this. And it's my hope that they join in troves. So, I mean, I think we've had a really great conversation. I'm looking through my notes here. What about sort of, I guess, political persuasions? I mean, is it clear that one side of politics just won't stick their neck out and be a leader on this and one side might? Or is it just a matter of having to take it to both of them and sort of try and find some sort of commonality? Like, what is the expectation here on the political front?
Yeah, look, both. To be honest, both sides don't really want to budge on this. And that's really disappointing. And the reason I think it is just the fear that if they make the call that clearly needs to be made, like science says it, community says it, everyone says, let's move these programs in a better, non-lethal direction. You make that call and then something happens a week later, a month later, a year later. That's what politicians are scared of. That really is what they're terrified of, because then they'll be crucified by the media, they'll be crucified by their political opposition. And it really doesn't make sense to me, because like I say, there's people getting bitten at so-called protected beaches now. Like, they're not effective now. What they're scared of already happens now. So I think it's, I don't believe there's people in politics that actually believe these programs work, and I don't believe there's people in politics that don't realize that this is the wrong way to be going about it. Like, they're not stupid people. They know exactly what's going on. It's just too risky to make the change. And how do you? So I guess the $1 million question is how do you overcome that? And to me, it's make not changing scarier than changing. So there is that fear that if we change the programs and something happens, we'll look bad. Right. Okay. How about if we make you look really, really bad on a global scale for not changing? That really is what we need to achieve. And we can't do it on our own. Obviously, we're trying to be the catalyst for that. But people speaking up and being outraged is what's going to do it. Because once they realize that, hey, there's actually political suicide not to move this in the right direction, that'll be, it's I guess, a set of scales. And at the moment, it's scarier to make a change than it is not to make a change. We need that much outrage and that much anger at them and that much pressure on them that it's scarier not to.
Sounds to me like that could have been a conversation you might have been having with a commercial client looking at a competitor in a marketing context and competitive advantage, right? So would you say that your skill set in being a creative and working in marketing, advertising has really set you up to be a fresh perspective on how to tackle an issue like this?
I wasn't cognizant of that until people started making comments like that one. Maddie, who you had on again recently, said the same thing. She said it like a fresh set of eyes and a fresh approach to this topic has been really reinvigorating for it. So I guess so. Like, it certainly wasn't conscious. Like, I didn't sit there and go, right, I'm going to come in on this topic. I'm going to bring all these new ideas and like, it wasn't a conscious decision. I just looked at the issue, which to me is an ineffective program that causes immense environmental damage. By ineffective, I say it doesn't work. And how would I go about fixing it? And I guess, I don't know, I just applied a strategic brain, a business brain to it. I'm really not sure, because like I say, it wasn't a conscious thought to do things differently. But yeah, I just looked at the issue and went, how do I think would be the most effective way to change this? And exposing it, building public pressure against it, like I just touched on, making it scarier to not change it, scarier than it is to change it. All these things, I guess they just, I'd love to say I sat in a room and hatched this master plan for a day or a week or a month, but I didn't. I just looked at the issue and went with my gut and what I felt was right, and assessed the lay of the land. And I guess when you say it out loud, it kind of does sound like strategic analysis or something in a business situation, and how you should go after a project or something like that. But it wasn't until now, or until a few other contexts in which this has been brought up in. I really hadn't thought about it too much. I just did what I thought was right and what I thought would be effective.
Yeah, no, and I think I'll echo Maddie's sentiments there. I think that's what is a defining difference here, which gets me excited, and I think it will get the listeners to this podcast excited. A fresh perspective on a problem that's been seemingly insurmountable for quite some time is just what we needed. And let's we wish you the absolute best. So we might start to wrap things up, Andre. So obviously there's a bit of time left, making sure it is the right time to release the film in this crazy, wacky old 2020 that we find ourselves in. But give us a bit of a picture of what's next, not just what's next for the film, but what's next for you. You whether you like it or not, going to make a significant mark as an impact filmmaker now. So is there other issues that you might find yourself in the next few years touching on as well?
Yeah, look, so to answer the first one, I guess there's no clear answer on where it'll end up and when just yet. These crazy times we live in is making stuff move a bit slower than we anticipated, more challenging. But I am confident, regardless of that, I'm confident it's going to end up on a very, very big platform in front of a very big audience, and that's the main thing. So where exactly and when exactly it's very, very hard to answer, but I'm super confident that it will. And it's just a matter of, I guess, we're working really hard in the background to make that happen, get the best outcome and get some clarity around that for our audience, our loyal supporters who have been dying to see this. So we are working on it. It will be coming. And it's just a matter of where and when, not whether this thing's going to get picked up. That's for sure. So I guess on the second topic, definitely I want to go and do more stuff. I really don't see myself doing anything but this for the foreseeable future. So like I say, up until now, I guess I've been a business guy, and I've always tried to make positive change in an industry, but it's through what now seem mundane and boring things like offering a better service than a competitor or offering a better product than a competitor. And that I think now feels like a very, I don't know, hollow and insignificant use of time and skills. So I guess looping right back to the start of the podcast where I said I've been applying that same logic that I would in business of seeing a problem and how would I go about fixing it, applying it to this and applying it to environmental issues and ocean related issues to me, to me seems a far better, I guess, better use of my skill set, more fulfilling personally use of my skill set. So I personally can't picture myself doing anything else moving forward. So there's other issues I've got my eye on that I feel either need to be have a fresh take on them or haven't been exposed at all. So yeah, I guess stay tuned. I think the Envoy brand won't finish with this documentary. So Envoy is I guess a diplomatic representative is the definition of the word. It's a diplomatic messenger, and that's what our cast of the film are. That they are bringing this message for sharks who can't speak for themselves and showing it to the world. And there's other people working on other things that I guess are envoys for that topic as well. And I really, really want to go and keep doing what I'm doing because it's been a long time since I've been this, I guess, engaged by something, excited by something, and motivated by something. Because when you see what's going on in the world and I personally, some people can, some people can't, but I personally can't just sit back and accept it. So yeah, I can't see myself doing anything else. I guess stay tuned, first of all for this film, but then there certainly will be more coming.
And we are very appreciative that you've taken this little fork in the road and there's no going back at this stage. So I'll leave it to you, mate, for any final words, and particularly maybe sending people to your social channels and where they can sign up for email updates, because I know a lot of people are going to want to see this film and learn about its progress as it unfolds.
Yeah, absolutely. So envoyfilm.com.au is the website. On most socials, if you search for Envoy Film, you'll find us as well. The handles are slightly different on different platforms, but if you search for Envoy Film or Envoy Shark Cull, you will find us. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, even for the younger audience, for some fun content, which is hard to do with this rather grim topic. So find us there, and yeah, I mean, just going back to your last comment, I feel a little bit silly finding this passion so late in life when you compare it to some of the other people that are in this film that have been doing it, like Maddie as an example, since she's 14 years old or whatever it was. You feel, I guess, a little bit inadequate for stumbling across it later in life. I'm 33 now. So yeah, I know still young, but certainly not dedicating your life to a cause since the age of 14. So I'm excited, but yeah, it's something that I wish I'd stumbled across sooner. I think I could have applied my skill set better, but here we are, better late than never, and I'll keep trying my best.
Mate, everything happens for a reason. I'm sure your previous successes and experiences have brought you to this point where you can exert your greatest influence. So I thank you on behalf of all the sharks and all the other innocent creatures who unfortunately have suffered as a result of these programs, and I just wish you the greatest success.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Say it's power, I just know it's only so.